As you can see from my dashboard, my alternator light is on, and it's because the alternator is just not charging. I don't know if this is maybe just a problem with the wiring or maybe something internal with the alternator. For a little over a year now, my alternator light has been flickering, but it's never actually turned on completely. But over this past weekend, I went to the Everglades, and on my way home, my alternator light came on and stayed on the entire time. I was able to make it back without any problems with the battery or anything like that, but this does mean that I need to fix the problem at this point, because it's not just a little flickering light. Now at this point it's a constant alternator light, which means that this car is not charging. As anyone with an air-cooled Volkswagen knows, taking out the alternator is like the worst job ever, because you need to take off the fan shroud, or at least I would need to take off the alternator stand. There is also a drive to the Keys tomorrow, which I really intend on going to, and I really want to take my bus to it. I'm going to go to the local Volkswagen store, and I'm going to see if they have any alternators available. And if they have that, then I guess we're going to take off the alternator. We're going to take off the fan, swap alternators, put it all back together, and be on that drive tomorrow. All right, well, I could go about taking this alternator off in one of two ways. The first way that I think is probably the easiest if this hatch wasn't glued on right now is that I have this hatch above the engine, which would allow me to just take this alternator strap off, take the bolts out around the tins, and lift the alternator and fan shroud directly up and out of the car. The second way I could do this, which is probably the way that I'm going to end up doing it, is that I can take the alternator strap off, take these 4 bolts out from the alternator stand here, and remove the alternator stand and then the 4 bolts that hold the fan shroud and the alternator together, and then pull that whole assembly straight forward out of the car. My alternator stand had a tiny leak anyway, so I decided that this would be a good chance to replace the seal. I was thinking that it would be easier to take this alternator stand off and I'll be able to pull this all out in one go, but actually now that I'm looking at it, I have to remember that this alternator stand has studs that go into the case. So this alternator stand will actually need to lift up about an inch off of these studs, and then it can be pulled back straight out. So what I'm going to end up needing to do is lift up the fan shroud with the alternator stand still attached. Now, this is a little bit of a problem because, well, my AC compressor is kind of in my way a little bit over here, but I think I can get around them. Really, the problem is trying to lift all of this stuff at one time up without messing anything up. Well, I've made another discovery that kind of hinders my plans a little bit on just being able to lift up the fan shroud and pull the alternator off. It seems that there are also other self-tapping screws in the back side of the fan shroud that I cannot get to. The only way that I'll be able to get to those screws if I open up the hatch. So I won't be taking the complete fan shroud off, but I will definitely have to get to the back of the fan shroud to be able to lift it a little bit. For that, I'm going to need to take off the rear cushion, cut out the silicone that I've put around the hatch, and remove the hatch so that I can get to the back screws. This hatch was made by a previous owner of the bus, and it's just a little bit too thin to get this specific fan shroud off with this alternator attached. One day I would like to add the hatch off of like a Type 4 where this hatch is, but for now I'm just happy to have a hatch at all. I noticed that the old alternator had this little nub grinded off so that the pulley wouldn't scrape on it. The new one had the same nub, but had a larger spacer so it didn't need any grinding. All of the parts of this fan have a really specific order of how they go on, so you have to be very careful on how you take them off. You don't want to bend or lose any of this stuff, or the fan may not work properly. If I remember, I'll link a few of the videos that I used to learn what went where down in the description. For some reason, the threads on the new alternator were already messed up from the factory, so I used the thread fixer tool to unbend them. what's on there. Real wobbly, but doesn't scrape, I guess. Installing the alternator in the car without completely removing the fan shroud is just about impossible with one person, so I did need a little bit of help lifting the shroud to install the fan and alternator. Alright, doesn't hit anything. Oh my gosh, well, yesterday was a really long night. Finished installing everything. I put the belt back on and the AC stuff back on. And we're here now at 9 a.m. at the racetrack right in front of the Keys. We're gonna head out on a trip with Dirty South Dubs. Well, we've made it here to Robbie's in the Keys, and we didn't have too many problems. A few people stopped on the bridge. I'm not really sure what happened over there. Yeah, the bus is running okay. Everything seems to be all right, and we're just enjoying our time here in the Keys. It's really cool. We're able to park on the beach. There are a lot more cars here than I expected, actually. Really nice, really cool drive. All right, guys, well, we are back home now. Everything ran really well. I'm super happy with everything. The alternator seems to be charging much better than the old one. The light's not flickering anymore. The light is completely out now. And everything seems to be running really, really well. Now, the idle of the bus is a little bit high, and I think that it's because when I put back the throttle cable, I pulled it a little bit too hard. So it's kind of like, you know, pulling down on the carbs a little bit. But for right now, everything is fine. I'm gonna leave it alone. Everything is running really well. I'm gonna go inside and relax because, man, it's been a rough 2 days. Yesterday we were up until like 3 a.m. doing the alternator. So that's it for now. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.